They were once football royalty, the gold standard. Champions before the Super Bowl even existed. But today, the Cleveland Browns are something else entirely. A team synonymous with heartbreak, chaos, and collapse. 59 seasons, 0 Super Bowl appearances, the longest drought in the NFL. An entire generation of Cleveland fans has lived and died without ever seeing their team on football's biggest stage. To make it worse, the team that used to be the Browns has 2 championships. So, how does a franchise go from the mountaintop to a punchline? Is it a curse, bad luck, or something much worse? Today, we pull back the curtain on the 5 cold, hard truths that have buried the Browns for decades and the one way they can rise again. Before the heartbreak, before the mockery, there was dominance. The Cleveland Browns weren't just good, they were revolutionary. Led by head coach Paul Brown, a man so innovative, the NFL still uses his playbook ideas today. The Browns redefined the game. Detailed scouting reports, film study, practice schedules timed to the minute. No one had seen anything like it. From 1946 to 1965, the Browns reached the league championship game an astonishing 11 times. They won 7 of them. This was a dynasty, a machine, a city's pride. And then it stopped. The 1964 NFL Championship, their last title. Cleveland beat the heavily favored Baltimore Colts 27-0. The city was electric. No one knew it would be the final chapter of their golden era. In 1963, owner Art Modell made a decision that shocked the sports world. He fired Paul Brown, the very architect of Cleveland's greatness. A power struggle behind the scenes, a fracture in the foundation. The Browns still fielded stars, Leroy Kelly, Brian Sipe, Ozzie Newsome, but the magic, gone. The championships, gone. The league evolved, and without their visionary leader, Cleveland began to lag behind. They were still respected, still competitive, but the cracks were spreading. And when the earthquake came, it would change everything. This is where the bleeding became permanent. By the early 1990s, Cleveland was a blue-collar city fighting through economic hardship, and their Browns were fighting on the field. But in the owner's box, another battle was brewing. Art Modell had been the face of the franchise for decades, but behind the scenes, the team's finances were crumbling. Cleveland Stadium was aging, revenue streams were drying up, and Modell saw no lifeline. Then, the bomb dropped, November 6, 1995. A date burned into Cleveland's memory. Modell announced the Browns were relocating to Baltimore, leaving behind a city that had lived and died for them since 1946. The NFL scrambled to do damage control. Cleveland sued, politicians raged. The compromise? The Browns' name, colors, and history would stay in Cleveland, but the actual team, the coaches, the players, the entire operation would become the Baltimore Ravens. In their first 5 seasons, the Ravens built a juggernaut and won it all. Meanwhile, Cleveland was gone, just gone. When the Browns returned in 1999, it wasn't a continuation. It was an expansion team wearing an old uniform. New front office, new roster, new coaches, and none of the infrastructure that winning teams are built on. From 1999 through 2019, Cleveland's win percentage was dead last in the NFL. They had become a revolving door of coaches, quarterbacks, and crushed dreams. The cruelest twist? The team that used to be the Browns had 2 Super Bowls. Cleveland had none. But even before the move, the seeds of dysfunction were already planted. And when the Browns returned, they brought all that chaos back with them. When the Browns returned in 1999, fans dreamed of a fresh start. What they got was a merry-go-round from hell. In just 21 seasons, 12 different head coaches. 12. That's an average tenure of 1 year and 9 months. Barely enough time to unpack your office. Each new coach brought a new system. Each new system meant tearing everything down and starting over again and again and again. And the quarterbacks? Oh, the quarterbacks. 33 different starters. A parade of passes so long, you could run a trivia night just on their name. Some were promising rookies, others were desperate mid-season signings. But all of them had one thing in common. They were thrown into a blender of instability, expected to carry a franchise with no foundation. Compare that to the New England Patriots. Just 3 starting quarterbacks in the same span. Stability breeds success. Instability breeds, well, the Browns. In 2017, the Browns hit rock bottom and 0-16 season. Not a single win. They joined the 2008 Lions in a club no NFL team wants to be in. They weren't just losing games, they were losing seasons, decades, and the belief that change was possible. But where do you find the players to turn it around? For most teams, the answer is the NFL draft. For Cleveland, the draft became another tragedy waiting to happen. Coming up, how the Browns turned opportunity into disaster over and over again. The NFL draft is hope wrapped in a jersey. One great pick can transform a team overnight. But for Cleveland, the draft has been less like a goldmine and more like quicksand. 1999, Tim Couch, first overall pick, seen as the savior of the franchise's return season. Instead, battered behind a collapsing offensive line, his career unraveled in just 5 seasons. 2000, Courtney Brown, the next great pass rusher. Injuries stole his explosiveness before it could define his career. 2007, Brady Quinn, the hometown hero. 2012, Brandon Weeden, 28 years old as a rookie. 2012 again, Trent Richardson, drafted 3rd overall, traded away after just 18 games. And then 2014, Johnny Manziel, the Heisman winner, the media darling. The Browns traded up for him, believing they'd found a star. What they got instead was a front row seat to a career implosion. He lasted 2 seasons. And while Cleveland gambled on Johnny Football, other teams were drafting players named Aaron Donald and Derek Carr. In 2017, with the 2nd and 12th picks, the Browns passed on a quarterback named Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. And in 2018, well, they finally got their quarterback in Baker Mayfield. But that story didn't end the way they hoped. Over 2 decades, the Browns have left a Hall of Fame's worth of talent on the table. Why? Because drafting isn't just about picking the best player. It's about picking the right player for the right system. And Cleveland didn't even keep a system long enough to know who they were drafting for. And here's the cruel irony. On the rare occasions when the Browns did hit on talent, they found new ways to waste it. Which brings us to the one thing no draft can fix: a losing culture. You can draft the right players, you can hire the right coaches, you can even catch lightning in a bottle for a season or 2. But without a winning culture, the clock always runs out. From the moment the Browns returned in 1999, they weren't just rebuilding a roster, they were rebuilding an identity. The problem? That identity kept changing. One year, they were a power-running team. The next, a West Coast passing attack. Then, a defensive-first grind. Without continuity, players couldn't trust the system, and free agents couldn't see a future, even when success came, like 2007's 10-6 season. It was treated like an accident instead of a blueprint. Key players weren't re-signed. Schemes changed again. The momentum died. Baker Mayfield brought swagger in 2018, breaking the rookie touchdown record. For a moment, the Browns felt dangerous again, but the cracks reappeared. Public feuds, inconsistent leadership, a revolving door of play callers. By 2022, Baker was gone. Talent wasn't the issue. The Browns had all-pro receivers, game-wrecking pass rushers, elite backs, but without discipline, focus, and a shared mission, talent became wasted potential. And the fans, they kept showing up, kept believing. Year after year, hope followed by heartbreak. That kind of loyalty deserves more than excuses. Cleveland's problem was never just bad luck or bad drafts. It was a fractured culture. And culture is the one thing you can't buy, trade, or draft. You have to build it, brick by brick. But what if the bricks are finally being laid the right way? For all their decades of heartbreak, here's the truth. The Cleveland Browns are not cursed. They're not doomed. They are right now sitting on the pieces of a potential contender. The only question is whether they'll put them together before the window closes. Kevin Stefanski is the first Browns head coach since the return in 1999 to win Coach of the Year. His calm leadership and modern offensive schemes brought Cleveland its first playoff win in 26 years. The fix starts here. Stop the carousel. Give Stefanski and GM Andrew Berry the years they need to build without fear of the axe. For decades, the Browns drafted hype over fit. That ends with a unified front office philosophy. Every pick, every trade must serve the system, not the headlines. That means trench dominance, scheme-fit skill players, and high-character leaders who won't implode under pressure. Whether it's Deshaun Watson or a future draft pick, Cleveland must do what it failed to do for Tim Couch, Colt McCoy, and Baker Mayfield. Protect the quarterback. Invest in elite pass protection and a consistent offensive identity. Without it, the cycle repeats. The Browns play in the AFC North. Cold, physical, unforgiving football. Stop chasing finesse schemes that belong in domes. Cleveland's DNA is hard-nosed, run-heavy, smash-mouth football, backed by a pass rush that makes QBs want to leave town. Cleveland fans are the most loyal in the league. They've proved it for decades. The organization must reward that loyalty with transparency, reach, and a genuine connection between team and city. Because when the dog pound believes, the energy inside that stadium becomes a weapon. The pieces are here. The blueprint is clear. And if Cleveland commits to it, the team that once ruled football may just rise again. And maybe, just maybe, the next time we talk about Browns history, it won't be about the drought. It'll be about the day the dog pound finally got its Super Bowl. Once upon a time, Cleveland didn't dream about championships, they expected them. From Otto Graham to Jim Brown, the Browns were kings. The game was theirs. And then it wasn't. For nearly 6 decades, the Browns have been chasing ghosts. The Lombardi Trophy has never touched this city. The stories told here are not of glory, but of what could have been. But curses aren't real. Dynasties aren't accidents. And in football, as in life, you can't change the past, but you can write a better ending. The only question now is, when history finally remembers the Cleveland Browns again, will it be for how they fell or for how they rose?